morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this lovely Friday morning. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Chamberlain, something just suddenly came to my mind now, that it's exactly
Spill it.
50 years ago that General Murtala Muhammad was assassinated, February 13, 1976. I'm just looking at the date.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was in that government that the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, served as chief of staff, Supreme Headquarters, to that head of state at the time. And from then, of course, we all know what's happened. Anyway, good morning and welcome. I'm Aya Makinde, as I said. This is Sunrise Daily. And Chamberlain, we're already counting down to the 2027 elections. Oh, by the way, you remember...
Tell me about it.
You would remember, of course, that the Senate had at some point proposed that, look, let's have the elections earlier, right? Before May 29. So Senate had proposed, I think sometime last year, proposed, okay, let's have the elections, say, sometime November 2026, so that all the litigation and everything would have been done by then. I wonder what's happened to that one. But now that we hear that, the INEC is proposing almost 1 trillion naira budget for the 2027 elections. The question is, what are we to expect? Just yesterday, I think it was that we were hearing from our commentators, our participants who came on the program, talking about that 1 trillion naira that we are budgeting, that if it was all electronic voting and all electronic, everything electronic, that we wouldn't have to spend that much money. Well, that's there. But then there are also risks to that. However, look at this figure, Chamberlain. 873 billion naira budget for the 2027 elections. And that's just for the 2027 elections. There are other off-cycle elections that are going to happen before then. The question we probably should be asking Nigerians now is, what are we expecting to happen? How are we engaging the process? We've been talking about these electoral reforms. There are no electoral reforms without the people. Do you feel engaged? Do you feel committed? Do you feel connected to the issues that are being raised by both the civil society organizations, the National Assembly, even the media? Those are questions, Chamberlain. It's like you're serving food for people who are indifferent to the ingredients you're putting into the food, isn't it?
Wow. You know, these funds that the Commission is requesting, and the breakdown, 375.75 billion naira for election operations cost, and then election administrative cost, 92.31 billion. Election technology, the much talked about election technology, is going to cost 209.21 billion, and then election capital cost 154.90 billion, all in billions, guys. And you know, remember this is taxpayers' money we're talking about here. That's why you need to pay attention. You can't afford to just keep saying, no, let them do what they want. But, you know, much as the tax regime is, I get several comments. Some say, well, my tax has increased, my salary has reduced. Others say, look, well, I think I saw some increase. So it depends on the threshold that people are in. So, but if your tax is your salary is reducing and you're being taxed, you know you have to ask questions of these government officials, what they do with your money. Now, all of this money that they're going to commit to the elections, why should we spend this amount of money if people at the end of the day will not thump their chest and say, yeah, this is the kind of elections we've been talking about. At least my votes counted. Or even if whoever you voted for didn't win, transparency, proper process is supposed to have been seen to have been adhered to. Not when they go and employ thugs to come and do all sorts of snatch ballot paper, stop people from voting, mutilate votes, prevent you from voting. Look, those times should be history. Because if you're putting, well, it's a hard-earned taxpayers' fund, and so it cannot be business as usual with how we conduct ourselves with elections. And then, in terms of technology, in that same breath, Ayo, INEC did also say, well, some of the headlines that lots of people caught was, INEC said, look, we can't guarantee 100% e-transmission of results because they don't control all those networks. But then there are those who remembered what Mahmoud Yakubu had said at the time in last election in terms of their capability and the assurance he gave to Nigerians that these things can actually happen. But we'll come to all of that in just a moment concerning the elections, what to expect, how parties need to rally themselves, and what's going on within the parties themselves. Because don't remember, it is who the candidates of the parties presents that you will choose from. So if they don't even have proper internal democracy, maybe they'll have to face the music when they present their candidates to the people. Who knows? All right, we're back in a moment, everyone. Stay on with us. Welcome back. At the moment, it appears to be 1 week, one trouble for the NNPP, just as the party grapples with the defection of its only sitting governor, a major political blow, I tell you. But now, it faces another storm. The name of its national leader, Rabiu Kwankwaso, was reportedly surfaced in connection with the proposed U.S. congressional bill on religious genocide in a context alleging sponsorship of terrorism. For a party already battling questions about stability and relevance, this raises serious political and diplomatic implications. Plus, what about the e-transmission of results? Is the party satisfied with all of these narratives? Are they ready for the elections? Or will they be ready? Well, joining us to discuss the fallout is Folashade Aliyu. She was the former campaign secretary for the NNPP in the 2023 presidential elections. Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I mean, for those in the NNP, I'm sure there'll be headache. You'll be thinking, what do we do? What's going on? What do we expect next?
There's headache everywhere.
Oh, dear. How are you handling all of this going on within the party?
Well, I guess it's just part of the
Politics?
process of being a political party.
But there must be a lot of late-night meetings, strategizing.
Definitely, definitely.
So these meetings will continue up until the final day of the elections?
Well, what if you win, you go into governance and you continue?
Oh, dear. But in terms
of living.
in terms of the work that political parties put in, because not a lot of people see what goes on behind the scenes. Because I know that sometimes when several people reach out, there are several late-night meetings, they're keeping vigil, they're working, they're doing all of these things. But lots of people, they even put in a lot more work than some businesses.
Definitely.
And so maybe that's why, who knows? I think that just goes to say, if anybody is trying to upset the apple cart or snatch anything from any party, they have to work as hard or maybe even harder. Do you regret being in politics?
No, definitely. You know, the issue that I see about being part of a political system anywhere in the world is that people have different reasons and different intentions, objectives of joining. For me, I joined because I like to advocate for people. I like people-centric programs. And I look at it as a service, you know, to the people. So it depends on, you know, but here in Nigeria, let's come, you know, to the domestic or the local level, is that people join for different reasons, you know, and that's why at times you see people who are so desperate in certain situations or the other.
So for the NNPP, even though the way the pendulum is swinging now, we don't know how all of these things will eventually play out just for that election. At the moment, while the party was grappling with the defection of a sitting governor, and then all over the headlines, Rabiu Kwankwaso's name in that U.S. bill, how is the party handling this?
Well, we're working on it. We're working on the back end. It's not acceptable to us by any standard or any means. And, you know, you have to look at the intentions. What's the intent of that bill at this particular time? If you're talking of Sharia, Sharia has been around maybe about 20-something, 26, almost 30 years. There are Sharia played in other countries of the world. Saudi Arabia, and some other Arab countries. So why Nigeria, why now, and why Konkoso?
But has he had any meetings internally with maybe key leaders of the party and say, look, this is my position of the matter, and then these are some of the issues, because if there might be a time where that may be required, because the party needs to have the confidence that his hands are clean. Because, you know, they always say, look, for his name to have appeared, there might be something they have on him that people don't know.
Not exactly, because the reason I'm saying not exactly to your last question,
Okay.
in the sense that there was a little clip on social media a little while back relating him to the Sharia, and we responded. And a lot of people, you know, spoke about or posted about his integrity, his person, his leadership, and so on and so forth. But like I said, you have to look at what's the intent. Why now? Why Konkoso? How can anybody, in their right senses, put up a bill that is as important as talking about religion, you know, terrorism and all of that, and then you single out one individual in this country, assuming we're 260, 270, assuming that 1% of that 260 million are in leadership, assuming it's even 0.01, that's a huge number, and you could not do anything but find an individual. So that tells you how malicious this whole arrangement.
But it's not just him. There's a group that's involved.
Well, it's a group. It's not aligned to
spotlight.
this group. There's no evidence that it's aligned to this group. They have not seen anything or.
How do you know they've not seen anything?
Well, if they have seen anything, if you look at this bill is about 20 pages long. Okay?
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's in subsections. You state your claim, you state the benefits, the importance, and then your prayers or the consequences or the deliverables of the bill, one way or the other. So how would you dare say that in a country like Nigeria, with everything that is going on with banditry, with terrorism, with kidnapping, with all this association, I don't want to, you know, go into all of that, and you now single out 1%, that gives them out.
Well, you know, they also say that the list is not conclusive.
But they should bring the list.
Oh, they also say, I mean, part of what one of our guests did say yesterday is the U.S. Secretary of State has that mandate now. They have to keep reviewing all of that list, as it were.
No,
but
no
right
matter
now,
how you want to review, for God's sake, we have had people that some names has been going around. They are liaising to the terrorist group or the bandits or this and that or the kidnappers and all of that. You look at the situation in Plateau, situation, nobody is happy about any of those things. But for you to now, as a bill as important as that in the U.S. Congress, and then you can only identify one person that you want to align with these other organizations that is not even a member of and is not aligned with them in any form or shape, we absolutely reject that. That's not fair to anybody.
well, we don't know what they have on him yet because, yes, that's
and let them share what they have on him, because look, when you're
it's going to be debated.
The point is that, yes, it will be debated.
So maybe all of this will come out when that debate is up.
Of course.
But isn't this a major blow to him and by extension the party? Because if he puts himself up for, who knows, election, depending on which elections now, the authorities or even people might say, wait, why should I go for him if he's under the radar of terrorism financing, which is a very serious allegation?
Well, maybe that's part of one of the intent of the organizers or the people that put this together. Because the fact of the matter is that if you are going to align with a person or a group, I'm talking about in the political election process, of course you want to align with somebody that you know. Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso is not new in politics. He's not a baby politician. We know he's Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, that we know him as a father, as a brother, as a leader, as a friend to very many people in Nigeria and outside of Nigeria. So if you now come and now say it's absolutely malicious, I cannot understand. I can't even comprehend it. I don't even know how they drafted that bill and they sat together and they decided that this is the approach. It's a very wrong approach from the beginning. And it's not going to go. I trust the U.S. Congress. You know, they are very detailed. The people that sponsored the bill, they may have their own reasons for doing whatever they are doing, which is not right, and it is not fair to anybody for that matter.
Has there been any conversation, perhaps thinking, who knows, maybe he might have made some mistakes, which is why some of these things are happening in quick succession?
Well, it depends on what you consider to be a mistake.
For instance, the Kano governor left the party, and people thought that they had that close relationship that he couldn't have gone. He's gone. And then there was that talk, too, as to he was supposed to have, maybe there were overtures for him to go to the APC, but his conditions were outrageous. And so now he's dug himself into a hole.
See, the fact of the matter is that when political season, such as 2027, because of the awareness of Nigerians and so many other factors, it's coming up. A lot of consultation, a lot of things, a lot of alignment, margin, and so on and so forth will happen. But the fact of the matter is that some people will come to us, we will also go to some people, we will meet at different levels. Yes, that's the normal thing. That's what's done everywhere in the world. But now if you, and you say this APC you are talking about, he was part of it at the beginning. There's a reason why he decided to, you know, get himself and his group out of it. But the other part of it is that if you look at the fact that, okay, we want you to be part of us, oh, okay, what do we have in common? What are we going to do for the people? What are the programs? What are we doing differently? You ask questions as a leader. That's what's expected of you. Because if you don't ask questions, then when you go back, the people that are your followers will ask you questions, and you've got to be able to answer. So I don't know if that's the reason. I don't know if it's maybe one of the reasons is when Trump was, you know, saying that there will be boots on ground, there won't be boots on ground. We're going to do this and that about terrorism in Nigeria and the Christian issue and all of that. And he said, look, we needed support. We don't need to be threatened as a sovereign nation. And I don't think that's out of place for anybody to express.
All right. Ayo.
All right, thank you, Chamberlain. Madam, I can't even, as Chamberlain said, begin to imagine what the party is, how the party is handling this. And those late night meetings definitely robs me of my sleep. But perhaps from a layman's perspective, is this something the party is viewing from the lens of maybe libel or slander?
For us, it's blackmail, it's slander. It's slanderous, actually. Okay. Now, if you look at the history, and in a lot of ways, you see people do not look at the pattern of things. This is somebody that participated in the last election, and is still relevant, and is still doing so much for his people. You saw the last time when he went to the market, he was on his way out of the country, and he thought it would be ideal that he, you know, express his sympathy, his sympathy to the people for what happened in Kano. You see how people trooped out. That's a show of love. And when you have such followership, you must find a way to protect it. You must find a way to sustain it. And of course, you must have a way to encourage people. And then your policies and programs should also carry these people along. And you, like you will see in the last election, most of our policies, most of the points that we put on our agenda are people-centric. And it's mostly community-based. So the fact of the matter is, our approach is that if you don't know what is going on the street with the people, you cannot govern them properly. So for him to have come out and say, look, Nigeria needs support, not a threat, because we're a sovereign nation. Whatever we try to do today will speak for us tomorrow.
Yes, my apologies. The reason I asked that question is, I mean, if it is slander or both, because it has been spoken and it has been written, is this something that the party would take up legally at any point? Or do you think it's too early for that? Because there are those who believe that whether the law passes through the process and at the end of the day is passed or not, with or without his name, the fact that it's even come up at all is significant. So is this something that the party is looking at legally?
Well, we will look at the diplomatic approach. We will look at the legal approach. We will start from Nigeria, because charity, they say, starts from home, because all of this, you'll see, starts from Nigeria. Because the congressmen that are sponsoring the bill, they are not Nigerians. Yes, some investigation may have gone on. Yes, they may have their own reasons, but if they do their investigation right, they will see that this person does not align in any form or shape with those other entities that they, cluster him with. That's not. So what I'm saying, in other words, is that we take one step before the other. I believe we're going to approach the diplomatic. We're going to apply the diplomatic approach first and see how, how far we can go with that. Then, of course, we'll go back to the drawing table and determine what next to do.
Well, what Chamberlain asked you earlier when the program began was about, he was talking about internal politics of political parties who are going to be fielding candidates. And at the end of the day, it's the party people vote for, not the individuals, even though the individuals are the faces of the parties when they vote, at least according to our Electoral Act as at now. But the question now is, Chamberlain also raised the issue of the fact that a whole governor, left the political party, and a number of people have also followed suit. That, to some, that is a huge question mark on the internal politics, and the intricacies of the party itself. Before the Kwankwasia movement joined the NNPP, they had their own seats. There was a kind of existence, and then when the Kwankwasia movement also joined, these dynamics, one would have expected that with such a strong political front, all of that back and forth would have ended. But then here we are, a governor leaving and a number of other people. Doesn't that put a question mark on the internal politics of the party? What exactly is going on within the party?
Well, let me tell you that for me, it's most unfortunate that the issue of the governor came up. But of course, everybody have a reason for doing what they're doing. But I want to take you back to the fact that in 2023, we didn't even have a councillor in Kano, and we were able to put ourselves together. And some people will say, well, it's just Kano, you start from somewhere. They said the journey of how many thousands miles starts with just a single step. So the fact of the matter is that, well, we cannot say that we're not concerned. It would not be true for us to say that we're not concerned, but what we have to do is go back to the drawing table. And, distinguished Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, as the leader, is a very experienced leader, very strategic-minded person. And I believe that we will do it again. We will do it again. And this time we're even going to do it much better than what we achieved. You can see that even in 2023, there is no amount of blackmail, threats, and all kind of things that happened. But by the special grace of God, we were able to come through it. Look at the tribunals, look at the appeal court, look at how we get to the Supreme Court, look at the efforts that we put into it. But that's politics. It's a matter of interest. So, yes, we are concerned about it. As some people are leaving, some people are joining, some people are coming. And like I said earlier, we are also reaching out to people. We are also trying to, widen our network and our worth. And when people see what you put on the table, when people see the policies that you want to put down, when people see the programs that you have, when people see what you put in your agenda for the people, for the masses, they will look at it and say, so even though this has happened, a lot of people think it's so negative, but on the other hand, it has really helped us. We have gotten a lot of, I don't want to say sympathetic approach to this thing, because everybody knows the history about the history of distinguished Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso and His Excellency Governor Abba Yusuf Kabir. So the fact of the matter is, yes, it's unexpected. Yes, we are concerned, but we are sitting at the table, we are strategizing, and we have a formula to proceed, and that's just the way it is.
Well,
for all parties concerned.
I apologize, madam. I'm not sure that the question has quite been answered, because the reason that the governor gave for quitting was internal turmoil in the party. Of course, there are members of the NNPP who believe there is no internal division, but there are those who also believe there are internal divisions. Yes, you say that it is politics, but then for those who are looking at options of, okay, I don't like this party, I don't like this party, well, NNPP is looking like it, but this thing that I'm looking at, I'm hearing, is not really very, very pleasant. So what are the issues that people need to know, and how is it being handled?
Well, you say a political party, you know, I said it very clearly at some point, that it's a matter of interest. There is no political party in the world that you see that is at peace, is resting peacefully and everything, everybody is agreeing at the same time on the same issues is practically impossible. So where we were in 2023, we're even at a better place now in terms of, you know, the party, the strength of the party, and the cooperation of the members. We're at a better place now. But like I said to you, everyone has a reason, and you have to be able to justify the reason at times why you do what you do. And I just want to leave it, you know, like that he must have had his reasons. And, you know, a lot of us had approached him, you know, even prior to now. And if he thinks he has, his reason is superior to our appeal, then he has to make a decision.
All right, let's wind down. I know it's early days, but you know the party in the state elections, you won by 128,000 odd votes to become governor. Is the party thinking, well, we may have to merge with the ADC, or are they still going to go solo?
Oh, you mean at the presidential election,
but
or at the state election?
Across board. Across
board. You at this point, like I said, we are consulting. Okay. People are reaching out to us. We are reaching out to people. And we still have a little time. I can't say that there's time, but there's still a little time. And when you have a party and a candidate that is people-centric, that is affectionate, you know, compassionate about what is happening to people, especially the situation in Nigeria today, and he's a very accessible person. He accepts and respects people. So there are so many reasons why people join, you know, the party that they join, or why they decide to be this way or that way. So we are hoping that we will do much better than 2023.
One more thing. What does the party think about this amendment of Section 60, Sub 5 of the Electoral Act in terms of electronic transmission of results?
Well, I think the party has made some statements one way or the other through the publicity secretary, national publicity officer of the party. But I know that what we stand for, or what we are proposing, or what we are supporting, in other words, is the real-time transmission of the result. And it can be done. And you can see, I mean, the debate is still on. A lot of people are saying that we have the tools, the resources, and the things, what do I get, ICT, satellite, all of those. I just think it's the political way. If we want to do it, we can make. It doesn't mean that when we do it first, it's going to be perfected or it's going to be 100% okay. But like in anything that we all do, as human, as you progress, you advance, and you make things better. So the political will, I think, is what we're all struggling with at this point.
What about you? Are you considering running for election or something? What if your people say, hey, we want you to run, like politicians always say?
Well, I enjoy working with Senator Rabi Musa-Konko. So, and for now, I mean, looking at the 2027 election, I think that working with him will serve the purpose that, you know, personally will be fulfilling to me. But if the opportunity comes, yes, of course, that's why I'm here.
All right. I thought as much. Well, Folashade Ali was the campaign secretary for NNPP for the 2023 presidential elections. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, back in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Reactions continue to trail the Senate's amendment of the Electoral Act, with supporters calling it pragmatic and critics warning it may leave dangerous gray areas. But beyond the outrage and the political spin, what are the actual legal and institutional realities of this amendment? Are Nigerians focusing on the right provisions or missing deeper structural issues on our electoral system? Well, joining us to break some of these down, Dr. Chimamadi Chieftain of the Action People's Party, immediate past chairman of the governing board of the Center for Transparency Advocacy, and the doctoral research fellow at the University of Warwick. Dr. Amadi, welcome.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So a lot is going on. First and foremost, I mean, the template with which you're going to go into the elections, the Electoral Act, has just been amended, and there's been several perspectives on the matter. Yes, senators say, look, we did right by the book, but what do you think?
I think it's just a question of what I call nuances. You know, you need to look deeply to understand that that even the words, the play of words, can have very serious impact on our elections and the way it's conducted, which is why the vigilance of the people has come to the fore, and what someone has called a hullabaloo in the electoral space, because of wording. You will need to put what the House passed with what the Senate passed side by side to understand the the clear differences and why people are angry.
Let me play two things for you. First, we've got some part of the chairman of INEC, Mr. Mukbuton, saying there might be challenges. They're not 100% in charge of the technology. And then we would equally play the former chairman of INEC's piece on the transmission of results. Let's listen to both of them, guys, can we?
Happy with the pilot that we have conducted, and we're reasonably confident in the strength of the processes.
I mean, even in rural areas.
The machine on election day doesn't rely on the internet to accredit voters. It works offline. Now, when it comes to transmission of results, that's where you need network. But if there's no network in the immediate vicinity, the scanned image of the polling unit level results, which is taken using the beavers, will be transmitted as soon as the staff move from the polling units to the collation centers. And we have been working with the major telecom companies in Nigeria, and we are satisfied that the number of blind spots can be addressed in the country, and the number of blind spots where you have no network is really small.
In rural areas.
The machine on election day doesn't rely on the internet to accredit voters. It works offline. Now, when it comes to transmission of results, that's where you need network. But if there's no network in the immediate vicinity, the scanned image of the polling unit level results, which is taken using the beavers, will be transmitted as soon as the staff move from the polling units to the collation centers. And we have been working with the major telecom companies in Nigeria, and we are satisfied that the number of blind spots can be addressed in the country, and the number of blind spots where you have no network is really small.
Well, that's the former chairman of INEC, Mahmoud Yakubu. But the current chairman of INEC, Mr. Mukbuton, was before the House committee defending his budget. That was where he said, well, we're not 100% in control of those technology, and so it came across as though he's saying, we can't guarantee 100% reliance or success of that since we're not directly in charge. Now, comparing both narratives, even though we didn't play the second one, what do you think?
Look, Jamalin, I don't want to impute any motives to what the current chairman of the INEC is saying. But what I want to say is, actually, we must never make excuses for failure or for mediocrity or complacency. We must never get to the point where we begin to accept mediocrity as, make excuses for you to accept it as normal. And I'm going to give you two examples with regard to elections. If you recall, Chamberlain, there was a time in this country when we were using paper, what do you call it, as a form of registration cards.
Yeah.
Professor Jega came in, threw all that away, and introduced technology, which gave rise to the PVC. It substantially improved the quality of our election, especially with regards to accreditation. When the Mahmoud Yakubu-led administration came in, what did they do? They also realized that there was a problem with accreditation. They introduced first a system of, accreditation, which was a problem. If you recall that period, there was this excuse, this escape clause that was made that in the event that your accreditation with the PVC and I think what was the name then was not properly captured, that you can use what was called incident forms.
Smart card reader.
The smart card reader, that you can use incident forms. That escape clause incident forms was abused. We got to a point where we're having votes that were more than even the number of accredited, more than the number of registered voters, because politicians would always look for a loophole. Okay? And then the INEC had to take a decisive step to say, you know what, no more incident forms. Even when there were challenges, people complained. Even when the former president and some other people wanted to, do the accreditation, the machine failed. But the commission was decisive to say, we cannot go back to where we're coming from. Today, we've gotten to the point where accreditation, people who are not on election day, is less than 0.001. We've gotten beyond that, okay? And it has improved the quality of our election. Now, we've also discovered that there is a problem right now with transmission, because you have situations where we have conquered election day experience on election day, even at the polling booth. The issue of snatching of ballot balls, stuffing of ballot is all but gone because of the introduction of technology. We have a problem with transmission. We have a problem with collation. Because once election moves from the polling units, goes to the collation point, that is when politicians begin their magic. And people have sat down and said, what we need to do is to introduce a system where transmission is instant. Now, recall that was what led to the question of IREV. INEC introduced IREV as a stopgap measure to see how you can deal with these challenges. But the courts, in their wisdom, said that IREV did not have a legal backing. Now, the Electoral Act, as you're saying, is an attempt to give a legal teeth to issues like, IREV and transmission. What you had the INEC chairman, the former INEC chairman, say was, an institution that is on top of his game, that realizes that even though there's going to be challenge and mistake, but we must have to do something to, give the election some form of integrity. Saying you don't have control over XY factors is creating what we have today, where you now have escape clauses. And let me tell you something, if you allow that escape clause to remain, it is going to be abused by politicians, because we know this is what politicians do at best.
All right, you mean, it appears you've already hit the ground running in terms of you vying for the #1 seat in Imo State. Why did you get in? What makes you think you could, actually clinch it?
Well, first of all, we need to get to a position where traditional critics like those of us from the civil society, we call ourselves traditional critics, because our work is to find faults and bring those faults to the fore, so you can make corrections. We are not to praising anybody. Our work is not to pat you in the back. It's to find what we are not doing well, constructively criticize you, and show you how you can do it better, so as to make governance better. But we have also found out over time that for some of us who have refused, they say that the triumph of evil over good is when good people sit down and do nothing. It is important that some of us throw our hat into the ring and bring some of these ideas that we think we have, bring it to the practical scene of politics, where we can, it can be put to the test and see whether it can benefit the, alleviate the plight of the people. And so you can't forever sit there as on the table, on the chair, and just keep criticizing without doing something. You have to do something. And what is the confidence? Where have I derived my confidence? My confidence comes from my years of experience over time. The ideas I have put into to the public for people to talk about. People have said these ideas are good ideas. The work I have done over the years, my experience, whether it is as a scholar, whether it is as a business person, whether even as somebody who has been in the protest industry. And I think that people have noticed it, my people have noticed it, and the clear-on call was made, and I answered it.
How do you plan to wrestle power? Because, people assume that the governor is not just going to sit back and just allow maybe an outsider, meaning not in his party, take over Douglas House. How do you plan to wrestle that from them?
Well, Imo State is a very unique state. Imo State is the only state in Nigeria where you've had 4 or 5 different parties, wrestle power, using your phrase. The first party to have governed Imo State was the PDP. The next was the Hakim administration, which was not even of the PDP, and the
PPA.
PPA. Then after that, you had ABGA. Then after you had the government went into AA, and then APC. You understand? So Imo State is peculiar. The Imo people are very sophisticated. There's a very sophisticated electorate that look at what you have to offer. They look at what you're saying, and they make decisions, and they go to the polls. So if your message resonates with the people, if your track record is something they identify with, and if you somehow find a way of, pushing it from community level to individual levels, and also finding a mechanism to stop rigging. You understand? You have to, and this is why we are also very concerned about this play of words with, an attempt to whittle down the efficacy of the Electoral Act. If you recall, in Imo State is a test case for what is happening right now. In the last election, while what was uploaded through the IREV had a different figure, what was exactly collected and announced at the final score was a different figure. So the same thing happened somewhere, I think, in Rivers State. So you need to know you have your work cut out for you, and that is why we insist that this has to be gotten right. But we believe that our message is resonating. For someone who is considered a newbie, who just got into this, and the kind of acceptance we have gotten, and the kind of registrations that have poured into our party, it's really encouraging. And I think that the APC in the state should be worried about our entrance.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Dr. Madi, permit me to take you quickly to the previous conversation. We'll come back to this one in a moment. Now, talking about the law and all the interventions that are making the rounds, which one do you think it is? I mean, thankfully, you are a scholar. Do we have a process problem, a legal or law problem, or a people problem? What exactly do you think the problem is in the electoral system? You've talked about the things that we have outgrown over time, but here we are still dealing with another thing. Because one would wonder, after this one, what else? Do we have a people problem, a law problem, or a process problem?
We have a politician problem. Put it simply. And I'm going to back it up. Nigeria is perhaps one of the only countries where every election cycle we amend the laws, wholesale amendment of the enabling statutes that, for grounds or that give the backbone to our elections. So what you have is a situation where after election cycle, politicians get sit back, look at what worked, what didn't work for them, see how they can, play around with it, and then put in place amendments to that particular, to the rule book to favor them. Now, comparatively, for example, in Ghana, the electoral process is rested solely in the hands of the umpire, who, based on what they see on the field, they make some, slight incremental adjustments, and then adjust their laws, give it to the legislators, whose job is merely not to tamper with it, but just to, approve it, and that goes on. But here in Nigeria, yes, they have the inputs of the umpire, they have the call for public hearings that brings about civil society organizations. But at the end of the day, what you see here is politicians being politicians. I'm thanking God that the people are vigilant, and what you are seeing, the whole protest you are seeing, and even within the National Assembly, I understand that the House of Representatives are against the amendments that was introduced by the Senate, and I think right now they are having a harmonization committee where they're looking at those clauses. So yes, it is important to look at your laws after testing it on ground, see where you can make them better. But every time you have wholesale amendments, which are not altruistic, I must say, these amendments are based on what politicians perceive as working for them and what is not working for them, and then it is introduced. It is not good for the system. And so when you see this, you see a situation where the politics is constantly overheated. On the issue of whether we have a people problem, I think we are slowly going beyond that, because we see where the people are now actively involved. The protests that are going on is people that are conscious enough, aware enough. Before now, you will see these amendments surreptitiously passed without even anybody realizing what is happening, and it is already passed. But now the people are aware. People are reading clause by clause, line by line, what the amendment is saying, and picking up each word and putting it to the test and saying, no, you can't get away with it. So Are we there yet? I don't think so, but I think we're making progress. And I also think it's important that institutions are strengthened from time to time.
And that's my next question, Dr. Amadi. So, from what I've heard you say, we seem to have an institution problem. Unfortunately, institutions are not ubiquitous. They are run by people. They are run by individuals, by human beings, by politicians, some of them, and by professionals such as yourself. So, to strengthen the institution that will be able to withstand any activities, any vicissitudes, if I can use the term, from anyone else, politician or whoever. How do we do that? How do we build a resilient institution that will be insulated against whatever attacks any politician or individual can bring against it? Because as you know, unless we have that, the trust quotient in our institutions are extremely weak.
Integrity and enforceability. Institutions, like Douglas North defined it, it's just a body of laws, really. And then when you set up, these laws themselves are enforced by human beings. So the enforceability of laws saying that once their laws have been passed, legal frameworks are put in place, they become sacrosanct to the extent of of the letters of that law, and then they must be enforced. There cannot be sacred cows in the enforcement, and that's why you talk about rule of law. You must enforce it to the letter. Now, that is also why you need, individuals, integrity. What is the leadership recruitment system? Who are those that you are putting there in these institutions? The process of electing those who make these laws. How did you go through? And I think one of the amendments in the Electoral Act is also about party, the process of party primaries, how candidates emerge. The candidate selection process must be also examined, so that at any point in time you have quality individuals whose track records are known, not just people who are also runs or people who are there just because of their own personal selfish interest. Now, there must be a handshake between the institutions and the individuals that drive the institutions. Of course, it's been said that the days of a strong man an overarching strong man who drives institutions, that those days are really gone. I mean, those days are really not the ideal situations, in a democracy. You must have the integrity of individuals. But at the end of the day, when laws are enacted, when these institutions are put in place, their enforceability must be something that will be taken seriously and must not be open to the personal whims and caprice of an individual.
Interestingly, you are an individual yourself throwing your heart into the ring. My apologies.
It's also important. So that when there are situations like this where there are intransigencies or when people deviate, that citizens can arise and say, no, you can't do this. And what you're seeing happen in the National Assembly, the commentaries, the media, what you're seeing now is part of that citizen awareness and vigilance.
Okay. Interestingly, Dr. Amadi, you are an individual yourself and you are throwing your heart into the ring already. Now, we're talking about trust here, and you, an individual, is going into an institution or wants to go into an institution, and you already said that the APC should be put on notice. The question is, over the years, people have the trust between the government and the people, whoever is in government doesn't matter, has dwindled over the years, as I said. We need to rebuild that trust. Why should the people in your state trust that you have what it takes to make any significant change to their lives?
A holy book says, by their fruits you shall know them. It's as simple as that. You need to look at the track record. If I say, look, I'm going to do something about the decayed infrastructure in the educational system in my state, and that is a problem for me, for us in our state. Imo State takes this education very seriously. We have been ranked as one of the most educated, if not the most educated state over time. But when you get down to the state, you see the public education system is all but gone. And if not for the intervention of faith-based institutions like the Catholic to Anglican that have taken over about 60% of some of the public schools, primary schools, secondary schools, maybe perhaps you'll not be seeing the good performances you are seeing in national exams. So if I say that I'll do something, look at me, where am I coming from? I've been educated in some of the best institutions between Nigeria and outside. And so if I say I know what to do about education, you look at where am I coming from? You have a situation where some of the individuals that are manning, that have had the privilege of doing something about education cannot really put their CV in that, side by side with mine. If I say I know how to create wealth for the people, and you look at my own personal endeavors, What have I done? How many people, how many businesses have I set up? How many people have I employed? What am I doing in that realm? If I say that I will do something about rule of law, if I say I will do something about transparency, look at my track record over time, whether it is in advocacy for the, better procurement processes over the years, whether it is advocacy for rule of law, whether it's advocacy for gender gender inclusion, whether it's in advocacy for the ease of doing business over years. And if I've been saying this and I've been consistent in it, then I think that if given a privilege to serve, I think I would know what to do. I know what I'm talking about. Again, you also need to look at the content of a man's character and say, look, if this man over time has remained steadfast, perhaps if he's given the mantle of leadership, maybe he will also take the instrument of state very seriously.
All right, well, I'm sure time will tell. Dr. Chimamadi, chieftain of the APP, thank you for your time this morning. All the best to you.
Thank you so much, Emily.
All right, that wraps it up today on the program. We do thank you all for watching. What a week it's been. We'll be here next week as well. I'm Chamberlain Osor. Goodbye.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Business Morning is next.